Oh boy, well, to kick off this video off right, I just want to say right now, yes, I got some new glasses that are on, and they're basically going to be used for, well, myself, and not my alternative persona that you saw, because my other glasses I originally have that I usually wear that I'm still going to wear, but I'm only going to keep them for my alternative persona due to the fact, well, not only do I look much more good looking with that, but I figure, you know what, hey, new year, new glasses, so I figure I might as well start it off with this. But anyways, to get back on the topic of this, I mean, now that the shit stains are now done, it's time to move on into the positivity of films that was seen and reviewed this year. And there's been a lot of good films that were released. But as for what we're going to do, we're not doing the top 15, we're doing the top 10. So basically, before we even bother getting into this list, I just want to come out and say I have a couple honorable mentions that did not make the top 10, sadly. And I do apologize. There's certain movies that you're going to be like, where is this? Where is that? Well, to let you all know, I do work. I have a job. And I don't have time anymore to sit and catch up on a bunch of films. So I managed to at least see a good bundle throughout the year with the time I have. And I'm probably going to do the same thing as I did for this year as well. So anyways, let's get right into the honorables of the films that didn't make it to the best list, but what I have so far. Alright, here are my honorables. I got Deepwater Horizon, Sausage Party, Finding Dory, Kung Fu Panda 3, The Finest Hours, and Money Monster. So that is my honorable mentions. And as for my underrated film of the year, The Finest Hours is on there. But that is my most underrated film of the year. So anyways, let's get into the top 10 best films of 2016. My take. Let us begin. Alright, number 10. This is a film that I saw a while ago because this has been a good year. Well, it's been a good year for two particular genres, horror and animation. Despite there was only two shitty animation films, but it's been a really okay year for horror films. I mean, we'll get right into the other ones or whatever is on the list later on. But let's start off with this with a bang. Now, all my other films I give like a 5 out of 5 to, but for this case I give it a 4.5 because I want this film to at least get some recognition. Because it is my horror film of the year. And when I saw this movie, I figured, you know what, okay, the first one was absolutely fantastic. Let's see how they're going to do with the second one. And boy, the second one, it was the exact same way as how they did it with the first one. It made me shit my pants. And it had some of the best spooks I have seen all year. I'm talking about The Conjuring 2. But yeah, especially with the time setting taking place in the 60s. Great musical score that they would have. Some of the classic songs that they had. Loved the selection of choice. Also the spooks they had of pretty much everything that happened. And, yeah, the story itself, and had one of the most memorable lines of the year. You want to know how I fell in love with her? How I managed to meet that person? I married him. I can't remember how the line particularly went, but that is one of my lines of the year. But yes, The Conjuring 2, such a phenomenal horror film, and a great sequel comparing on after the first one. This was absolutely brilliant, amazing horror film, and definitely living up to my expectations of what I wanted to see in a horror film, and boy, this movie lived up to it. So yes, let's move on. Okay, number 9. This is a film that, holy fucking hell, that when I saw this as a live-action adaptation, I was a little worried at first how this was going to be presented. But you know what? It has been done before successfully, and for this case, I was quite curious to see how this was going to turn out. And surprisingly, from the animated film to being a live-action film, it was just like how it was with the animated film, but this one took it to a whole nother level with its voice acting, the CGI effects that was added on, making it look like the actual legitimate thing was there, along with the sing-along of Bare Necessities, you know where I'm going with, and to pretty much making Shere Khan one of the best villains in one of the best villains in the whole entire year and in the film. I am talking about the live adaptation of The Jungle Book. God, this movie was outstanding. I mean, from the cinematography to, like I said, to the visual presentation of the CGI. I forgot who the kid was who played as Mowgli, but he did an outstanding performance, and I would love to see him again in film since he did an outstanding job in this movie. Now, they've been talking about a couple live adaptation films that are going to be, made, and I'm quite curious to see how they're going to be. That'll be mentioned in another video. But yeah, for this one, The Jungle Book was fantastic. What was the other one? Sleeping Beauty. Oh, no, not Sleeping Beauty. Cinderella, excuse me. That was a phenomenal live adaptation, and this one was another one. So yes, so far, the live adaptation of these Disney films have been really good, and I can't wait to see what they're going to be doing next. So yes, that's my number 9. Okay, my number 8. This is a film that was, I think it was a sequel it was a sequel that happened, and just like with the first one, this was another superb film, and oh my goodness, John Goodman delivered an outstanding performance, and I hope he wins an Oscar for it. Not trying to talk about the Oscars because the Oscars aren't really my thing. But yes, for this case, I hope John Goodman wins an Oscar because this was definitely one of the best performances I've seen in a film he's done, playing as the main role, the main key factor in this movie. And this film had me on the edge of my seat with all the suspense factor, the whole sequence of taking place in one little area, and everything itself of that whole fear and that everyone was going through of what was going on the outside. Yeah, it was so fucking outstanding seeing this movie. And that film is 10 Cloverfield Lane. But yes, I believe this was my first 5 out of 5 out of the whole entire year. And when I saw this movie, like I said, I was on the edge of my seat because I rarely am on the edge of my seat when it comes to any film. But this case, this is one of the films that had it, and definitely for sure, this took the cake for me. But yes. What else is there to say except Tommy James and the Shondells? You did your part of having I Think We're Alone Now in the song. But yes, thank you Tommy James and the Shondells for writing the song. Not trying to, get irrelevant or nothing, but yes, that was one of the key songs that was in the movie itself. But yes, that's all I gotta really say. Let's move on. Alright, my number 7. This is a movie, an animated film that a lot of people say is their best film of the year. I mean, okay, let me go down and say some of the animated films that people might have as their favorite animated film of the year. You got Moana, Kubo and the Two Strings, Zootopia, I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, that one movie that Brett was talking about, Your Name, that one's another one. What else? Those are the only 4 animated films I can think of off the top of my... Oh, Finding Dory is another one. Kung Fu Panda 3. Dumb shit, Mr. Garrison, you are. So, as for this case of what animated film I'm talking about for my number 7, this is a movie that was so fucking adorable. I mean, literally, it was that cute. The bunny itself, Judy Hopps, you know where I'm going with this. She was fucking cute as hell. This whole story and everything of its original concept and centering around a certain reality factor of what goes on in the world between racial conflicts and whatnot, and how they showed a prime example in this movie of what it's like between all the animals was so relating to current events that goes on in the modern times right now. And it also shows a lot of so many references from different movies that, my God, I just picked up right away. And I'm not going to spoil what they were because this is a movie you have to see for yourself. And boy, most of these references that was in this movie was fantastic. And Tommy Chong, who was playing as, I think it was a goat. Yeah, spoiler alert, a goat in the film. He was one of my favorite cameos and appearances in the movie. And yes, I am talking about Zootopia. Like I said, this film was absolutely brilliant with its original concept, the relating factor of events that happen today, all the the references that was shown in different movies, that how they portrayed it in this film, I got in right away. And it was just so cute, and all it is about a bunny who wants to live a dream as a cop, and boy, this movie was absolutely brilliant at its finest. So yes, Zootopia is my number 7. Okay, my number 6. Now, a lot of people have this film as their number 1, or their number 2, or number 3. But for this case, it's not for me, sadly, in this case. Now, I love the movie, 5 out of 5, absolutely love the hell out of this film, that's why it's on my best list. But it just didn't quite make it up there for me, because there was other films that I saw, which will be explained later on as this top 10 list will progress, of films that I absolutely loved with a burning passion that just made it higher. But for this case, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really a guy who's into the trend of superhero films, but for the sake of reviewing and whatnot, and viewing of films, and putting the reviews out there to recommend for folks and whatnot, and just because, well, I got a hangnail. Anyways, but yeah, I'm talking about a film that was, a lot of people say it is a cinematic achievement, and I'm not gonna lie, it is a cinematic achievement. It is one of the best films of the whole entire year that will go down in the superhero film and genre as a classic. And this was just a film that just carried on as a sequel that was perfect between two beloved superheroes fighting against each other. And for this case, the main villain is the guy who wins it. Not to spoil nothing, because I did there, oopsies. But yes, the main villain actually wins it, and the way they portrayed it was absolutely genius, especially between the war between all the beloved superheroes combined, fighting against each other. It was just a thing to behold, and I'm talking about Captain America: Civil War. Yeah, this film was a cinematic achievement, and it will go down in the books in the superhero genre as a bona fide, certified G classic, and no more. But yeah. What is there for me to go on and continue saying except, well, I just explained it before I even said the name like I've been doing. So, yeah, this film was fantastic, and can't wait to see what's going to go on further there. I'm actually a little curious, even though, like I said, I'm not really big into the superhero genre, but for this case, this is one of those movies that has me puzzled of what's going to happen next. So I'm a little suspicious of what's going to continue on. So yes, Captain America: Civil War is my number 6. Alright, down to the final 5. The big palm of the thumb, the index, the middle, the ring, and the pinky. All together, counting down to the number 1. So yes, my number 5. Now, a lot of people have, like I said, this is another one of those films that they have in their top 5, and for this case it was because this film was absolutely genius, to say the least. Now, as for what it is, though, basically this is a film either people have either Captain America or this one higher on their list, but for this case, I have it higher because this was a superhero film that I've never seen before in the superhero films, and folks, I apologize for looking away. I should have pulled it out earlier, but sadly I didn't. Why? Because I'm a lazy piece of shit, so yeah. So anyways, back to what I was saying. This is a film that was original and unlike superhero films I've ever seen, and boy, this definitely made its, what's the proper term to say? It definitely made its mark in the superhero genre itself and in films of, what's his name? What the fuck's his name? Oh, fuck me, I don't remember his name, but you know what, oh well. But yes, this was a film that had some of the best slow-mo effects, cinematography, presentation, musical score was actually really well, but the movie itself was just was an outstanding comedy itself, and it's gonna, like I said, this is another one that's gonna go down as a classic because this film definitely made its mark, especially with all the marks that made to other films. And by the way, I have to give the character credit for liking Wham, because I do too, and I do have the record. So, oh, by the way, rest in peace, George Michael. But yes, much credit is given to Deadpool. This movie, like I said, this was an outstanding movie with all the funny gags that was going on. Same with movie references. Other references to movies or songs or whatever. Also being a joke of a superhero film as its own merit, along with everything, the action sequences and everything that was just produced into this film was just superb. But yes, Deadpool is my number 5, and I don't need to go on anymore. By the way, have you seen 127 Hours? Spoiler alert! Okay, number 4. This is a movie that probably a lot of people are not going to either agree or disagree, but for this case, this is one of those movies that was polarizing of the year, and I've had this in my top, like, number 1, but for this case, it made it to the back burner in the top 5 section. But for this case, it's still my top 5 because as soon as I saw this movie, I was immediately hooked because I understood what this movie was doing and what it was centering around and how it was produced was absolutely classic and a great time setting, some classic references you can say. George Clooney, who did a good job playing as the main role for the film that they were producing, which was known as, well, Hail Caesar. So, continuing on. Also, the ideal factor and the concept of a movie within a movie. I was completely left in awe with how they were producing, and also centering around the 50s and everything with all the humor and jokes that was going on. I was just entertained constantly watching this film, and I've seen it again. I had the exact same feeling because this movie was phenomenal. And I couldn't help with the fact, because knowing me, who loves those types of films that has like that classic 50s mood to it, the theme, the gags, the style, the persona, pretty much everything that goes on, knowing me, yes, this was definitely a film I was going to treasure, and definitely was, and a lot of people were right that I was going to treasure this movie. And yes, Austin, thank you very much for telling me about this film, and I gladly appreciate it. So yes, Hail Caesar is my number 4. Okay, number 3. This is a movie that I was quite surprised of how good it was going to be, and this is a film that some fat guys told me a while ago that should be in everybody's top 5, and boy, I'm not gonna lie, for that fat guy being a smart retard, he was definitely correct. Tubby! So, continuing on. The way that this film was produced, centering around the modern times, but with that classic Western feel to it, it was genius. It was absolutely brilliant with its classic styled Western feel to it. It's taking place in the modern times with a good connection between the bad guys and a good connection between the cops. And instead of killing and whatnot, it was the ideal principle of those guys, you know, having each other's back, supporting the family, and, you know, being bank robbers. And that was one of the major classic crimes that happened in classic Western films. And for this case, this was definitely done right and showing a great tribute to classic films. And that movie is Hell or High Water. So yeah, goddamn, I shouldn't be itching my nose while filming this, but you know what? I had to toot my honker there, so why the hell not? So anyways, back to the film. This movie was outstanding. Great connection, both great chemistries between both sides of what they were showing that led up to the main factor of both groups colliding against each other, between the cops and the robbers. And everything. Chris Hemsworth, I believe that's who he was. Yeah, he sounded a lot like John Marston in this film, especially how he was portraying, and the tone of voice, the character mood, as a down-to-earth fella as well, who's, you know, in the crime and whatnot. I felt a lot of John Marston, who was in Red Dead Redemption, in this movie. So yeah, Hello High Water, number 3. Okay, number 2. This is definitely my animated film of the year, and I'm going to start it off right off the bat with that, because this movie, I was so touched with this movie, and especially of what they were doing. Being a stop motion film and whatnot, all the work that was put into it was, and this is another cinematic achievement, because so much work, dedication, time to make a beautiful, touching story like this with a really good twist as well. This was outstanding at its finest, and boy, I was touched by this movie, because the ideal principle of a kid who's a storyteller, who is, trying to, defend his, who's trying to, protect his town, live on his parents' legacy, and, find out his father and collect all the treasures and whatnot, or the piece of armor to fight off the bad. It was a basic story with a touching ending, touching story, touching ending, and it was phenomenal, especially with the Asian culture that was going around. And boy, this movie touched my heart with so much emotion, outside and internally, because that's what this movie was. And boy, one of the most touching films I've seen. I'm talking about Kubo and the Two Strings. Like I said, this movie, I was touched with it because with the Asian culture that they had, that they were centering around, along with storytelling and the ideal principle of a kid who's trying to live on his parents' legacy, it was just fitting, and it was perfect of what they were accomplishing in the film, and how they accomplished it. It was done to perfection. Absolutely touching movie, and I recommend seeing this. I really do. But you know what? I'm going to say this right now. For my number one, if I never saw this movie at all, no joke, this would have been my number one film of the year as well. But nope, we got another film that is my number one that, boy, I was tickled pink. Pretty in pink. So, let's move on. Oh boy, I think it's quite obvious by now that everybody knows it. And you know what? I'm going to talk about it again, because this film was a masterpiece of representing the 80s, and representing what the 80s meant, with a simple plot of a kid who's trying to impress a girl by creating a band, making an awesome, outstanding dedication and tribute not only to the 80s but to Back to the Future itself, with I consider to be the song of the year and best soundtrack of the year, best musical score of the year, pretty much everything combining into one of what representing the 80s of what it was, and also me, and affecting me personally, of me loving the 80s and when I growing up with the decade in my life, and the music itself, of me loving the music that I grew up with. This movie just showed a perfect demonstration of the music that I grew up with and why I love it so much, and this is why I listen to it, and all the stages that they went through, that the band went through, of going with Duran Duran, of that new wave, to the happy sad feature of The Cure, going on to the uprising high tempo of Hall & Oates. And what can I say? It symbolized perfect show and tell of what they were showing, and it made so much sense for everything. And this is the only film I gave a 6 out of 5 to, and I rarely give that type of grade to any movie, but you know what, for this case, it deserved it, because it represented everything that the 80s meant. It represented me to me personally, it represented who I am as an individual and the decade that I live every day. And it was just absolutely perfect. And my number one film of the year is Sing Street. For an independent film, it was just amazing, and boy, this is a film I can just watch over and over again and never get tired of, because it represents who I am with its feel and everything. Now, I did say it took place in England in my review, but I apologize, it took place in Scotland, or Ireland, or somewhere around there, so my humble apologies about that. But anyways, yes, I don't need to go on anymore except say this film's a masterpiece, and this is a film that everybody needs to see. And I'm not going to lie, out of all the people that I've seen do top 10 lists, this film has been on almost all those people's lists. And to all the folks who saw this movie and put this either in their top 5 or top 10 list, and making the cut, I thank you dearly, and you've all made me a happy man putting this film up there. That really put a smile on my face. And I'm not doing it for me. This is coming from a guy who absolutely loves the particular decade, and someone who I was a little worried that people are like, okay, how are people going to react seeing a film like this of something that I live by personally? Not trying to sound narcissistic, but seeing how they'll react to it of something that I cherish and live by every day. But when people saw it, they admired it for what the movie was, and I am so glad and happy and really happy of the positive feedback that people have been saying about Sing Street. And this movie's gonna live up, and I'm definitely gonna say this is definitely one of the most underrated film of the year. But my underrated film, I said earlier, was The Finest Hours. But yes, throughout that all, this will be an underrated indies film, and boy, love the hell out of it. So yeah, that's going to have to do it for my top 10 best films of 2016. So we're done with the 2016 films. We're going to move on into 2017 movies. Yay! I'm so happy. Does it look like I'm happy? Nah. But on a serious note, I'm really happy we're going to be stepping away from 2016 because we've had a lot of shitty films and some good films. So yes, it's been a polarizing year as well, because that's the best thing to sum up the year is polarizing films. But yeah, overall, we're going to move into to 2017, and we'll be talking about some films, either they'll be good or bad as time progresses. So yeah, stay tuned for that, and as always, ciao for now.